I'm a 61-year-old woman with a teenage son. I have my own health issues. I don't own a house and I don't have any superannuation. I don't have investments, but I don't have credit cards or debt either. With rising costs of food and rent, I can see my future living in my only asset, which is a 1974 Kombi, right? That's my future, full-time, and passing my youngest child onto his older siblings to be their responsibility. For the past few months, my family and I have had terrible food insecurity just because the fridge broke, right? Nothing, not major, but the fridge broke down. And we were using ice for weeks. So we have been living on charity food for quite a few months. When my fortnightly disability support pension comes into my account, within about 12 hours, everything is spent on bills. I'll be lucky to have $10 left for a travel card for the week. Today again, Thursday, we went and got another load of food from a charity to support us for the week. I'm not sure I can actually see this cycle that my family is in ending anytime soon. So my question is, why does the government think one-off payments actually help me and others? When is the government going to talk about people like me and raise the rate of the disability support pension so I can live above the poverty line?
Brigid, thank you. And Dan, Tina, we'll come to you in a moment. But Ronni, how familiar is that sort of story?
It's the story that I hear every single day. It's the demographic that we deal with. A one-off payment. During the pandemic, we saw what happened with JobKeeper. During the time that JobKeeper was paid, people could afford or were managing their budgets a little bit better. After March, when those JobKeeper stopped, we had more people coming to us, more demand, and the exact situation reverted. And it's even worse now because of the cost of living. This week, I was going to share a story about a nurse, a single mother, who literally had to make a choice about, she wanted to go to work. She had to make a choice. To go to work, she has to put her child into childcare. In order to put her child into childcare, she then had to make a choice. She couldn't drive her car to work because she couldn't pay for fuel, or she had to buy food. This is the reality in this country, this generous, abundant, extraordinary country.
So Dan, Tehan...
Sorry, but can I just tell you something as well on this point? I think we also have to draw in the issue of not just wages but job insecurity when we talk about cost of living pressures and people facing homelessness. And I say this because during our floods a few weeks ago, we ran a barbecue for people who'd been displaced by the flooding, and a young man told me that he lived in his car. During the floods, the rain bomb that we had, he had nowhere safe to even park it. His car was, the windows didn't work, he got soaked. But the thing that really stayed with me is the fact that he had a job. He was a delivery driver and he couldn't get enough shifts. And so we have in this country someone who's working in employment and
64% of people who come to us for support have got jobs. They just cannot afford to live on the wages that they are getting.
Let me come back though to Brigid's question, Terri Butler. Brigid's saying, what about the disability support pension? Should that be increased?
Look, I think that the disability support pension has been, frankly, it's been getting more and more difficult to even get the disability support pension. I don't know if that's been your experience, but my office helps people all the time
Should it be increased?
Struggled to get the disability support pension. So let me just say that point, David, because it is important. There's been a deliberate policy by this government to try to shift people off the disability support pension. The former Social Security Minister, Christian Porter, spoke about that at the Press Club some years ago, was very proud of getting people off the disability support pension. But of course, the difficulty with that approach is it's only a good thing to reduce reliance on the disability support pension if you're reducing need.
Okay,
not if you're
Brigid's question is about whether that can be increased. Should it be increased? And so the
question on the amount of money, we have to look at, in this country, with the cost of living pressures that we're under, all of the different components of cost of living. As I said, incomes is definitely one of them. It's a really important question. Of course, we have to look at that in the context of broader government priorities, broader decision-making in relation to spending, but we have to think about childcare, as Melinda said, power prices, house prices, the lack of social and affordable housing in this country, something that needs to be addressed as well. All of these different items when it comes to cost of living, and of course the prices of food, the disruption of the supply chains and the increased reliance on food banks, charities, etc. We have to look at all of these things in a comprehensive way.
Let me come to you, Dan Tehan, on this, because Brigid's other point is a one-off payment isn't by its nature going to fix a long-term permanent problem, is it?
Well, I mean, without knowing Brigid's full circumstances, it's hard to tell that. I don't know how old her son is, etc. But everything that this government has tried to do is to make sure that we've got people through the pandemic, and now to make sure that we've got a strong economy as we come out of this pandemic, so we can continue to make the payments that we need to make to support people who are dealing with these cost of living pressures. And the best thing that we can do is try and get as many people into work as we possibly can, and try to get them as many hours as we possibly can. And the fact that we've got an unemployment rate now at 4%, we've got youth unemployment rate at its lowest level since 1971. The forecast is that unemployment rate will go to below 4%. That means that there's going to be more and more opportunities there for more and more people to get work, and that means
but not with respect,
so that we can provide
sorry to interrupt,
support.
But I was just going to say, not with respect, not someone like Brigid who's shaking her head here in the studio. The question is about the disability support pension.
David, can I...
Let me just quickly get an answer from you, Dan Tehan. Is there a case, do you think, for increasing it?
Look, it does increase. It gets indexed every year, and we'll continue to do that. But what
I'm talking about a real increase above inflation to help someone like Brigid.
Well, what we want to do is make sure that we can make other payments to assist her. We want to make sure that the opportunities are there for her son to be able to get an apprenticeship, to get the skills and training that he will need, and to make sure that there's employment for him when he leaves schools. That's the best thing that we can do, and that's why we're so focused on a strong economy. That's why, coming out of this pandemic, the fact that we've got unemployment now down to 4% is quite remarkable when you think about what we were having forecast when we headed into this pandemic. We've got a situation now where the biggest issue that's raised with me by whether it be farmers or businesses in my electorate is that they need more people to be working more hours. So we're in that situation where we can provide those opportunities for people to be able to improve their wages and to be able to help deal with the cost of living.
I appreciate that point. And we've heard that point. Sorry, Melinda, you just wanted to jump
Just
in.
a couple of things. Firstly, as part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Australia committed to halving the rate of poverty in Australia in 2015 by 2025. We've gone nowhere. It's clear that's because things like income support payments are not sufficient. There has been a huge campaign on raising the rate of these payments, supported by the Business Council of Australia, CEDA, ACOS, the former Prime Minister John Howard, Chris Richardson from Deloitte Access Economics. I mean, the evidence is compelling, and everyone agrees. But we don't get it to happen. And the other point to make, though, sorry, is that we talk about the unemployment rate. There are 560,000 people who are unemployed at the moment. There are 930,000 people on JobSeeker, right? So yes, the unemployment rate is low, but there are a whole bunch of people
who are still on that JobSeeker.
Who are still
Omar?
not getting sufficient income.
I think this is a question about what kind of country we want to be. And I just keep going back to the lessons from COVID, and we learned in COVID that we could do things differently. We could, we could even see a Conservative government throw money around like it was free. We could see, we saw that we were willing to take sacrifices in order to look after the health of other people. We all felt pretty safe from COVID, at least I did, but I wanted to make those sacrifices to help the other people, the vulnerable people. And I think, we've seen it with, of course, the increase in JobKeeper, JobSeeker, and we need to go forward. And if you ask Australians, are they willing to forego their tax cut so that we're not seeing somebody who's in employment, they're not a dole bludger, they're in employment, but they're living out of the back of their car, most Australians are going to say yes to that. They will forego their tax cut and they will be very happy as long as they can trust the government to spend the money, and that's a big question. But if they know that money is going to go into proper supports, into disability support pensions, into JobKeeper, JobSeeker, etc., of course into our health system, into public hospitals, into primary care, you know, these are important things that make us proud to be Australian, because we know that everybody has access to these minimum services.